Hello there. Welcome to another talk, another meditation. Because all my talks are meditations, I always say that. And that's because it's true. But this talk was inspired because a lot of people are talking about this just now. And I've saw a few videos, talks on the internet, YouTube, and it's a subject that many people are interested in because it's happening to some people, quite a lot of people actually, on this awakening path, spiritual awakening. And this is a part of it. And it's me also, it happened to me also. And, if this has happened to you, I remember when it was happening to me, I'd be awakened at like 1 a.m., It was ridiculous times. And, and the reason this happens is because you're being called upon. When it's quiet like that at that time of day, there's no distractions from other people. And you can call it God, source, whatever you want to call it. And that power is then working with you in that early hours. You see? And so what I did is, I am my mother's registered caterer. Apart from doing all the spiritual work, I am my mother's registered caterer, and so I decided to get up at 5 a.m. a few years ago. And so I get up at 5 a.m. every morning, a routine I've got. But regarding this getting up early when it happened to me, the reason it stopped is because, number one, I created a routine for myself. But also all the messages of being awakened at that time, basically the message was to create a routine so that everything is balanced. You see? Because, one side of getting up at 2, 3, 4 a.m., it is a spiritual thing. But, also, it could also be because you've got an imbalance in your sleep routine as well. That can, you can get up too early as well. So I'm all for the spiritual thing, but, pay attention to the kind of things you're consuming. Are you eating too late? These things can actually have an effect as well. Not, everything is spiritual, but some things can be explained as well. But ultimately, at the very top of the pyramid, it is spiritual. It is led by a spiritual thing, but part of spirituality is rationality. Sanity, rational thinking. It's something that I talk about, and I've got a page on my website, lovelightfamily.com, called Spiritual Maturity. And that's a part of the journey also. But if you didn't get up at 2, 3, 4 a.m. and say, God, I wish I wouldn't have got up at this time, you wouldn't have tried to, myself, I'm talking about, create better balance in your routine, your eating, what you're doing. And so there's a purpose of getting you up early, so you come to the realization of, I've got to do this, got to do that, got to do the next thing. You see? And divine, God, whatever you want to call it, the divine is that moment of realization. That's what if spiritual awakening is an awareness, it's that moment where you have realization. And what happens is You're open to this kind of a realization, awakening energy. And all you're doing is you're like aligning with this force, and that's ultimately what spiritual awakening is. Getting up at 2, 3, 4 a.m. is just a little part of it. But like I say, yeah, it could be, you can take something and you could get, it might not have a good reaction to your body, eat something, or anything, and you could get up from that. So things can be explained also, but also that can have a spiritual meaning to it also, because like I say, like I've been saying past 5 minutes, that part of ascension is just, a lot of it actually is rational thinking, right? It's about training you to be rational. What I found about the spiritual awakening journey for myself is that it taught me to be rational. I wasn't rational before this awakening, right? And that's very important, because most people are actually irrational. A lot of people on their spiritual path early on, it's all about the spiritual things, but what they don't realize is that before you get to the spiritual side of things, it's like, imagine you're in a haunted house. Before you talk about the ghost, you've got to sort of make sure that there's not something making a noise, right? Or doing something, or you're not erratic. So you've got to be rational first, right? And once you start to become more rational, you actually start to see there's actually a lot of rational explanations for things. But the reason that's important is because once you've got all that rational stuff out the way, then if there's something else going on, then you can know it's spiritual. And getting up, and the reason I'm mentioning this is because getting up at 2, 3, 4 a.m. got me to think a lot about my diet and things like that, because there were certain things I was doing that would get me up at that time. And but everything, if you look at the whole picture as one, it's all connected. So it's not that it's just rational or that it's just spiritual. The spiritual side and the rational side are actually connected. Basically, it's like a movie. And in that movie, it's all created by the same producer. Call it God, Source. And that's basically what's going on. So the rational side is the same as the spiritual side. You see, and my journey of getting up at 2, 3, 4 a.m. was, teaching me about this. You see, about sorting rational things out in your head, in your life, having a dedicated routine, not habit routine. So ultimately, the meaning of waking up at 2, 3, and 4 a.m. is spiritual. But part of that spiritual journey is rationality, is being rational in your thinking and being sensible, right? And thinking things through with a clear, rational mind, making sure you got your diet sorted, your head sorted, what you're eating, consuming, supplements, all that stuff, right? It's all about the harmony and the balance. Because if something's out of balance, that's why one of the necklaces I like to wear sometimes is the pentagram, because the pentagram is symbolic of the elements. If one element's off, then, well, you're going to have a problem. So what I'm talking about here, I'm talking about my own journey of getting up at 2, 3, and 4 a.m. This isn't for everybody. Some people might have had something similar. That it taught me, it actually was the whole reason why I've got a routine now of getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning. It led to that. It led to me balancing everything. So that journey was basically a spiritual journey. even though it would appear to some like it's a rational thinking thing, but they are connected. The rational thinking is connected to the spiritual side, you see. But like I say, many times people separate the two, like they're separate, but they're actually connected, right? But you don't hear a lot of people say this. One of the things that happened in my spiritual awakening, it was like I was just becoming a lot more rational, and you don't see that a lot in today's world. You see erratic thinking, insanity, but not much, rational thinking. And but that was my journey and the meaning of it was ultimately that it is a spiritual journey, but it basically means that you are being led by your higher self when you're waking up at these times. It might be that you're eating something at a wrong time and it gets you up early, but your higher self is getting you up at that time so that you realize that you've eaten something wrong, so that you correct it. You see? But if you didn't go through that pathway of getting up at those times, you wouldn't have sorted all those things out. This is what it was like for me. So this talk has been about explaining how they're not just about the meaning of getting up at these times, but in my journey of getting up at those times, it was more than just a spiritual thing. It was a rational thing at the same time, and like I say, they both are connected. I learned through getting up at those times, it was a journey of me sorting all these different elements out rational things that would get me up, or irrational things that would get me up at those times. But ultimately, it's a spiritual thing that gets you up early and put me on that pathway of realizing, I've got to correct that, I've got to correct next thing, and now I've got a routine. But if it wasn't for that calling or getting up at those times, I wouldn't have a routine like I've got now, where I get up at 5 a.m, my alarm goes off at 5 a.m. every morning. Been like that for a few years now. I get up and I'm my mum's registered caterer, so I've got a load of jobs that I do. But it was that getting up at those times, that calling, spiritual calling to get up at those times, that led to me sorting out these different areas of my life. So it's like a militant kind of routine thing I've got now. I go to bed at 10 and up at 5. But it was this getting up at these times that led to that. So, in this talk, I've spoke about meaning of getting up at 2 or 3 a.m. There's a spiritual calling from your higher self, but ultimately I've explained how that through my own journey of this, it showed me how the rational side and spiritualness are connected. But like if you're watching a documentary about haunted houses, they'll normally, it appears like the spiritual side and the psychology side are separate. But actually, if you look deeper, they are actually one. You see? And that's what this getting up early showed me. It took me on a journey of realization. I had to sort that out. And it's a journey. The spiritual awakening is a journey. And it's your higher self, God, whatever you want to call it, leading you through the path, and getting up at these times is part of that journey. But it's happening for a reason. You've got to do what I done. You've got to work it out. You see? And be gentle to yourself. Be kind to yourself. And basically just enjoy it. You see? Because the tantric bliss is within enjoying the present moment. And that's what the journey is all about. And I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates, talks, news, research, and much, much more, please do visit my website at www.lovelightfamily.com. Thank you.